Hey everyone, welcome to your yin practice for the day. Today we're going to work through one of my favorite sequences in a yin practice. It's really great for stress relief. It's really great for lower back relief as well. I am going to use a couple of props for this practice, so you are more than welcome to grab something just to support your body in a comfortable way. I'm going to make use of a bolster. So if you have a pillow or something that you can fold back on itself and wrap up in a towel or blanket to give you a little bit of support underneath the hips, that would be great. I am also going to make use of a block or two as well. So if you have a makeshift block or something with a little bit of height on it that you can support the forearms and elbows in a couple of these postures, that will be really great as well. Some of you might find that you don't really need the props. Except for really two positions we're going to do at the end. Just make sure you have that pillow or bolster nearby. So when you're ready, meet me on the mat in a comfortable seat. I'm sitting on a block just to lift the hips up a little higher today and let the knees descend down. But if you don't particularly need it, then you don't have to take it. Allowing yourself to find that comfortable shape that doesn't bother you or hassle the body in any way. Wriggling out any hassles, any frustrations, and then slowly approaching stillness. You can close down through the eyes and let the hands just rest down through the lap, or you can take the hands to the legs, whether the palms are facing up or down. Let's utilize this opportunity to approach the breath. Begin to observe just the natural ebb and flow of your breath. You might not be settled in your perfect yin breath yet, and that's okay. It will introduce itself to the practice over the course of these next few minutes as we introduce softness to the body. Begin to feel into where your sit bones are in contact with the floor or the block beneath you. Perhaps feeling into the edges of your feet and the texture of the mat underneath them. As you inhale, kind of expand out of your lower back a little and notice that lengthening of the vertebrae, crown of the head gently rising. Without bringing too much activation into the body, it's just a kind of more open expression of your seated pose. You feel a little bolder, a little more confident, a little more together. Now allow your inhale to dive all the way down towards your belly, expanding into your ribs and coming up towards your shoulders. And as you exhale, soften the shoulders, shoulder blades, belly. Let it wash away any tension. Breathe in down to the belly, the chest and the shoulders. Exhale, soften the shoulders and your face. Nice long breath in. And breath out. Soften the edges of your eyes. Inhale. and exhale. And with these last few moments here, just take your hands and place them over your heart space. One palm stacked on top of the other. And begin to recognize where the heat is penetrating from. Is there heat moving from the chest towards the palms? Or is there heat and the energy penetrating from the palms towards the chest? And with your next inhalation, gently begin to upturn the corners of your mouth, noticing how it releases any extra stress held in the eyebrows. You let go of any frowning, any negativity in any way, conscious or subconscious. And then gently begin to flutter open your eyes. Release your hands and you can roll off your prop and find your way into a child's pose. Take your time to get there, and yogi's choice. You're welcome to keep the knees together, big toes touching, or you can take a wide balasana with the knees as wide as your mat, sinking the hips back towards the heels and the heart space dives all the way down. A couple of options for props here. If you find that your hips are really elevated away from the heels and you can't get them all the way back, you can actually take a bolster and place it on top of your calves, kind of like a supportive pillow underneath the booty. This will help give your hips a little bit of support while they kind of hang in the air. Now they have something beneath them. If you feel that you're sinking enough towards the heels, but you'd like a little more support through the chest, take the bolster underneath your chest like a big body pillow and let yourself dive all the way down and just take one cheek to the bolster. With your first few breaths, utilize kind of any final wriggles, any final adjustments, and then move towards stillness. Bend into your elbows so that the forearms are comfortable on the ground. Not extending through the arms, but instead softening. And as you settle into your stride of the breath, scan through your body and find where you can release. Sometimes I notice that my shoulders kind of actively pull back. So I can kind of let them go, let them melt in whatever direction they feel in their natural orientation in this shape. And if at any point through your practice today you notice that the face is kind of furrowed into a frown or into unnecessary concentration, just upturn those corners of your mouth and introduce the gentleness of a smile. You don't have to hold the smile, but allow it to break that stress. just the back of your body, breathing and expanding on the inhalation. And the front of the body melting into your prop or into the earth on the exhalation. If you took your head to the bolster facing one way, just be sure to turn it to the opposite side so that you remain even through the neck. Gentle tingling in the fingertips. Maybe sensation in the toes. Let's take in 5 more really slow breaths. Allow the inhalation to fill you up and it brushes right to your top edge. And the exhalation is smooth, not puffing out quickly, but controlled as it travels out through the nostrils. Noticing how long your breath can take. When you really slow it down. And then begin to feel down into your palms, the array of sensation radiating from the palms and fingertips into the earth. And then gently begin to press down and lift yourself up out of your child's pose. If you had any props, just gently take them out to the side. And come down to lay on your belly. Taking the legs out long behind you and letting yourself fall down to the mat. Allow your arms to come down by your sides, palms facing up, and your preferred cheek on the mat. Notice that flushing sensation all the way down your toes. allowing the rebound poses to speak just as much as the poses themselves. And then you can inhale, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Push yourself up to a tabletop position. And for our next pose, which will be a dragon lunge, I'm going to take 1 or 2 blocks just up near my hands. You can also use a pillow or a bolster. They're supportive as well. It's just to basically bring the earth a little closer towards you, which will give you a little more height in the body. And then on your next inhale, step your left foot to the outside of your left hand. It should brush kind of on the edge of your mat so that it's not directly underneath your shoulder. We actually want a little bit of space for the hips. And then you can actually tuck your back toes and lift your back knee and send it a little bit further away from you. This is completely optional. If you would prefer to take a short dragon lunge, you can do that. Find a moment to experiment with your edge. Maybe you take a little sway from left to right through the hips. Maybe you have a few pops and cracks. And then when you're ready, come back towards center, keeping all 4 corners of your left foot grounded. Hands can be on the blocks, or your props, whether it's up really nice and high and the heart and gaze is gently forward, or whether it's on its lowest setting or maybe even on the earth and your gaze is down between your hands. The option is completely up to you. I personally like to come down to my elbows on the block. Begin to approach your breath. Soften into the back of your neck. And release any contraction in the shoulders. And if this pose begins to release any reactions or emotions for you personally, don't be surprised. Poses like dragon lunge and pigeon pose and other hip opening poses can kind of release frustration, and it comes out under this guise of being frustrated and agitated in the pose. But it's really just the body letting go of things that we've stored. We do have the capacity to move past this reaction, this emotional sensation, and to settle in a place of patience and peace, even in its presence. Just intertwine with your breath and see if you can remain present with these undulations, these emotional swells. Welcome to bow the head deeper if it feels okay through the neck, bringing the chin towards your chest. Letting the back of the neck go super heavy. Abdominal wall is soft. only going to be here for 5 more breaths. Infuse patience with every breath. On your last breath, begin to observe how your shape has changed. And then you can inhale, just bring the hands back to the floor or to the blocks and lift yourself up, super slow motion. Once you come up, you can slide your left leg back with control. I like to lift the hips back first to release pressure through the back thigh, and then slide the leg back. I'm going to take the blocks off to the side and come down into a reverse Shavasana. Be patient with the body's response. The heels draw away from each other. And the shoulders melt forward and down. Taking one more breath. And then inhale, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Gently press back up into a tabletop. And then reset those knees so that they're underneath your hips, about hip distance apart. And then bring your props back underneath the hands if you were using them. Remember, you don't have to. If the floor doesn't feel like it's too far away in your lizard lunge, then you're welcome to keep the hands on the floor. Gently step your right foot up to the outside of your right hand, making sure that it brushes the edge of your mat and the toes face forward. Welcome to keep the back knee exactly where it is if this already feels strong enough for you. Otherwise, welcome to dive a little deeper, tucking the back toes, lengthening into the back knee. And again, take your time. I always like to say to my yogis that you don't ever have to come to the full expression of the pose on your first breath. Let your breaths guide you there. Let it be a journey through the breath. And that way it gives you time to pause in each cycle of breaths, or maybe 2 cycles of breath, and you can incrementally soften the tension that arises at each layer, rather than getting to the bottom layer and then having 5 or 6 different layers of tension to work through once you're already there. Welcome to take those little sways from side to side if it feels intuitive. And you can either turn your blocks down a little more, or you can melt down to the elbows if it feels available to your shape. Keep grounded through all 4 corners of the right foot. We're not letting the knee pour open to the side today. We're keeping the knee straight up. Soften into those shoulders. Give the back leg some space and time to open deeply through the hip flexor. We're not here to punish the body, we're here to nourish the body. Notice your reactions, your undulations. Even noticing your own asymmetry, the side that challenges you a little more. Welcome to bow the head and let the chin melt towards the chest, only if it feels okay in your practice. Encouraging the breath to soothe you. We're not here for too much longer. Five more breaths. Can you soften the belly and let the hips fall even micromillimeters deeper? As you inhale, slowly come back up to your hand. Take the ascent nice and gently. Once you arrive, you can shift the hips back in space, softening that stretch in the back leg, and then slide your right leg back behind you. And taking your props off to the side so that you can come all the way down to the belly in a reverse Shavasana. Allowing the juice from the hips to pour all the way down the legs. Almost like nectar or honey pouring out of the joints and lubricating the rest of your body. Imagine the knees and the ankles, all the tiny toes in your feet and, all the tiny bones in your toes and your feet, just coated in this kind of thick, life-giving honey. It almost allows the muscles to soften a little more. And then on the next inhale, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. As you exhale, press up into a tabletop position. And then tuck all 10 toes. Take your time. We're going to come up into a dangling pose. And I like to really support the body quite a lot with a bolster here. So I'm going to take the bolster and place it just in front of my knees. It kind of gives the hands something to land on. And then placing your hands on top of your pillow or your bolster, gently lifting into the knees, and walk your feet towards the bolster. You can keep your feet hip distance apart, spreading into the toes, and keep a really nice big bend in your knees here. Because if we actually lock out through the knees, what's going to happen is we're probably not going to be able to fold as much, and it keeps a lot of the tension in the lower back. Instead, see if you can actually bend super deep into the knees, nestling the belly against your thighs. And then gently let go of the head, gazing back between your legs. We're not going to be here for a super long time, so try not to panic too much about it. You can keep your hands on the bolster. Sometimes I actually even have yogis who like to take extra height onto the bolster and rest their forearms on the blocks or books or whatever they have nearby. With each exhale, see if you can let go of the shoulders. Let them pull up towards the ears. This is probably one of the only times that you will hear a yoga teacher say, it's okay, your shoulders can be up around your ears. Let them be really heavy. Allow the energy that's draining towards the head and the face to kind of fill and plump up any lines on the forehead, around the eyes. It's okay if you're a little tight in the hammies and the legs are starting to speak to you in tingles. If they're pins and needles, then soften a little bit. If it's just a gentle kind of sensational tingling, it's okay. You can kind of pedal through the legs. Remain deep with the breath. Give the head a little shake, yes and no. Make sure it's ragdolling in space. We're just going to be here for 5 more breaths. If you feel really drawn, you can even wrap your arms around the backs of your legs, which might give the back a little more room to soften. It creates this barrier so that your muscles can let go even more. And then taking your hands to the prop in front of you. Super, super, super slow. Begin to energize down into your feet and into your hands so that you kind of move towards a halfway lift. Again, notice that nice juicy sensation flooding down the legs. And don't stand all the way up. We don't want to kind of influence the blood pressure in any negative way. So just come towards your halfway lift, tucking the belly in towards your spine. Give the body time to adapt back, maybe spread into the toes, moving into the feet. Amazing. And then begin to widen into your feet. You're taking your heels towards the outer edge of your mat and turning your toes off to face diagonally to the sides. And I'm going to take the bolster off to the side here and use 2 blocks. If you have something like a little stool or something that's kind of the height of 2 blocks stacked on top of one another, you can use that, but we're going to come into a squat. So taking the blocks in between your legs just behind you, they're going to be your little seat. Making sure those toes are turned off diagonally to the sides, and then begin to sit your sit bones all the way down towards the blocks. Kind of a supported malasana for anyone who has done this pose in a yang class before. Making sure that all 4 corners of your feet are supported on the earth. Take a gentle inhale, lifting out of the heart space, away from the pelvis. And then as you exhale, we're going to bow forward. So walk your hands through the center of your legs. You can adjust your sit bones back on your blocks. Remember that you can turn the blocks higher or lower or whatever you need. Even if you feel that an unsupported malasana is available to you, I encourage you to try it with the support underneath the sit bones. It kind of allows a deeper level of release rather than strain. And how deep you fold forward is entirely up to you. Don't feel like you have to reach the hands up towards the top of your mat. That kind of just creates this extension through the shoulders. Instead, soften deeper into your elbows and encourage the backs of your arms or your triceps to kind of nestle in towards the inner knees. Back of the neck is super heavy. Almost gazing back towards your blocks. And while this pose is really soothing to the lower back, it's also really soothing to the nervous system. This is one of those poses that I really love to do if I'm struggling to sleep. It kind of neutralizes and deeply grounds the body and the mind. Soften into the eyes and let the eyeballs become really relaxed. And notice if your abdominals are kind of acting like a wall preventing you from falling forward. Can you soften into that wall and allow yourself to dive a little deeper? Again, maybe it's only micro movements that you can feel, but no one else can see.
Notice if your mind has kind of wandered away. Let's take 5 more breaths. Maybe experimenting a little more. And then gently grounding down into the palms. And pressing yourself up, letting the head come up last.
Maybe you even take the hands to the knees to give yourself a little bit more support on the journey back. Take your feet together, still sitting on your props. And then gently wrap your arms around your legs, taking the belly towards the thighs and curl in just for a couple of rebounding breaths. If you find the knees a little too far away, welcome to take the forearms on top of the knees. And then as you feel the sensation subsiding, slowly lengthen into the spine. And then making sure that you safely remove the blocks from underneath you. So maybe rock forward onto your toes and take them off to the side. Keep them nearby because we are going to use them again shortly. Coming all the way down onto your mat. Once you land, you can keep the soles of the feet on the floor, knees pointing towards the sky. Maybe take a few little intuitive tucks and presses through the tailbone, noticing the pelvis kind of spiraling up and down. Drawing any shapes that feel good. And when you're ready, I've actually changed my mind and we're going to use the bolster instead of the blocks. Making sure that you grab your bolster or your nice comfy pillow and lifting into your hips and slide the bolster or the pillow underneath your hips. Allow the hips to settle down on your prop, coming in towards a supported bridge pose. And so in supported bridge, we still want the knees to be hip distance apart and the feet are nice and comfortable at hip distance apart as well. I'm going to give you yogi's choice here to stay in a supported bridge, or you can kind of build upon that deep squat that we were doing before and move in towards a happy baby pose. On the next inhale, you're welcome to lift the knees and bring them in towards your belly. Adjust your bolster up or down here if you need. The idea is that we want the knees to feel like they're pretty effortlessly falling towards the chest. And so sometimes you might need to actually just send the bolster a little bit further down so that it's really lifting through the tailbone for you. And then begin to widen your knees out towards the armpits. Welcome to hold here, just holding onto the knees. This might be comfortable enough for you. If you feel drawn to your full happy baby, then you can take your elbows inside your knees. Allow the hands to catch hold of the outer edges of your feet. And then begin to send your feet backwards until the ankles stack on top of your knees. Soles of the feet look straight up towards the ceiling. Soften into the lower belly. And remind yourself to relax the face. Let the shoulders descend. They should be nice and heavy. Back of the head should be resting on the floor. If it's not, make the adjustments that you need to get it there. Remember that holding on for dear life is not the purpose of the pose. It's just coming into expressions that are already available to you and encouraging softness in those places. Create a gentle lengthening in the back of your neck. Upturn the corners of your mouth if your eyes are squinting or squeezing closed. As we begin to descend towards the end of the practice, we begin to guide the mind and the energy down towards the mat. Can you soften your grip in your hands wherever they are upon your body? Can you let the exhalation soothe you a little more? Now beginning to release your idea of perfection and just falling into a relaxed variation. That might mean that the ankles aren't perfectly stacked or the feet aren't perfectly flexed, but allow yourself to kind of just hang out. Notice this sense of freedom. This sense of carelessness. And effortlessness. Let's take 5 more breaths. Allow the breath to feel refreshing as it comes in. And glides out. Whenever you reach the end of your own 5 breaths, let the heels gently draw back together. Maybe you pause here, taking your hands to the knees. You can press the knees together. Remember, don't ask your muscles to do all the work. And just hold here in a reverse child's pose or knees to chest. Kind of give time to the hips to release that sensation, especially if you held your full happy baby pose for that whole time. I actually really love this pose with the knees nice and close to the chest and the support of the pillow or bolster underneath the sit bones. It kind of brings the lower body effortlessly close to the upper body, and it just feels really comforting. It's kind of a depth of the pose that we can't really reach without that bolster elevating the tailbone. So just kind of give yourself permission to enjoy it for a moment. And when you feel like the sensations have finally settled, use your hands placed on your knees to press the legs away. And then gently lower the feet to the ground. And then you're welcome to lift up through the hips and slide the pillow or bolster down underneath your knees. If you like to take Shavasana without the bolster, then you can take it completely out to the side. But considering that this sequence is really nourishing to the lower back, having the bolster beneath the knees kind of just furthers that intention. Begin to spread into your body in any way that feels enjoyable and relaxing. Maybe you open through the arms and allow the palms to face up. Maybe flutter through your eyes to make sure that they're not clenching. And allow the cheeks to melt back towards the earth. Releasing your need to express anything on the face. Allow yourself to become completely void of personality in this moment. And if there's any chatter still remaining in the mind, allow yourself to take a deep inhalation through the nose. Open the mouth and exhale. Inhale. Open mouth, exhale. Let's take one more in. Out. Back of the ribs are heavy. Back of the head is heavy. The only thing moving through your body is your breath. The outer layers of your body become even more still. So that we can become more aware of the movements on the inner layers of the body. as you lie here completely still, can you notice all the parts of your body that are in contact with the mat? How they feel heavily connected, weighted. Almost as if gravity is something tangible. Almost as if even if you wanted to move, you are magnetized to the earth so heavily that you can't. And the exhalation just allows you to dive in and accept that sensation. You become one with gravity and let it penetrate through your cells. And in this moment of heaviness, without moving, notice the sensation that is bubbling at the fingertips and the toes. And without actually doing it, create an intention in your mind to wriggle the fingers and toes. Notice how the sensation in the fingers and toes flourishes and responds to that neural intention you create in your mind. Your body speaking to the brain and the brain speaking to the body. Your ability to observe this conversation, in essence, is your yoga practice. The discipline we create on the mat cultivates space for us to view and hear this conversation in detail. And so remaining completely mindful and in tune with this conversation, begin to take an inhale and wriggle into the fingers and toes for real. And notice as it breaks the bonds of gravity and you feel light all of a sudden. You can begin to circle into the ankles and into the wrists, moving at your own pace. Perhaps you even stretch fully into the body, sending the arms back behind you. Maybe bending into the knees. Take your time to roll to the left-hand side. Find a moment of pause on your side, allowing a few breaths to move into your body. And then find your way up to a comfortable seat whenever you're ready. Once you arrive, let the prayer guide towards your heart center, thumbs connect to your sternum, head bows towards your hands. Appreciative of the magnificence that exists within your body and the conversation that runs completely unmonitored and unmanaged quite often by your consciousness between your brain and your body. And thank you so much for tuning into that conversation with me. Namaste.